Cleopatra was queen of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt from 51 to 30 BC, and its last active ruler. She was a descendant of its founder Ptolemy I Soter, a Macedonian Greek general and companion of Alexander the Great. Cleopatra was yet another great force to reckon with in Egypt. She wasn't simply a queen, however. For 3 decades, she ruled as co-regent with different men, assuming as much if not more power than them. While she's often credited with being one of the most beautiful women in Egypt, turning heads at every corner, she was actually more well-known for her intellect and skill as a ruler than her looks. After the death of Cleopatra, Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire, marking the end of the second-to-last Hellenistic state and the age that had lasted since the reign of Alexander, 336 to 323 BC. Cleopatra's legacy survives in ancient and modern works of art. Roman historiography and Latin poetry produced a generally critical view of the queen that pervaded later medieval and Renaissance literature. In the visual arts, her ancient depictions include Roman busts, paintings, and sculptures, cameo carvings in glass, Ptolemaic and Roman coinage, and reliefs. In Renaissance and Baroque art, she was the subject of many works including operas, paintings, poetry, sculptures, and theatrical dramas. She has become a pop culture icon of Egyptomania since the Victorian era, and in modern times, Cleopatra has appeared in the applied and fine arts, burlesque satire, Hollywood films, and brand images for commercial products. Elizabeth II was Queen of the United Kingdom and other Commonwealth realms from the 6th of February 1952 until her death in 2022. She was Queen Regnant of 32 sovereign states during her lifetime and 15 at the time of her death. Her reign of 70 years and 214 days was the longest of any British monarch and the longest verified reign of any female monarch in history. She's well known for helping to define the last century of England, having been Times Woman of the Year back in 1952 when she first accepted the crown at 26 years old. She's rejected creating a public persona, has kept her private life completely private, and remains a total mystery to people other than what we know of her swiftness ruling for the last nearly 70 years. Elizabeth was born in Mayfair, London, as the first child of the Duke and Duchess of York. Her father acceded to the throne in 1936 upon the abdication of his brother Edward VIII, making the 10-year-old Princess Elizabeth the heir presumptive. She was educated privately at home and began to undertake public duties during the Second World War, serving in the Auxiliary Territorial Service. In November 1947, she married Philip Mountbatten, a former prince of Greece and Denmark, and their marriage lasted 73 years until his death in 2021. They had 4 children: Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward. Queen Elizabeth II died on the 8th of September 2022 at Balmoral Castle in Aberdeenshire, at the age of 96, and was succeeded by her eldest son, Charles III. Her state funeral was the first to be held in the United Kingdom since that of Winston Churchill in 1965. Catherine II, most commonly known as Catherine the Great, was the last Empress of Russia, 1762 to 1796, and the longest ruling. She came to power following the overthrow of her husband and second cousin, Peter III. Under her long reign, inspired by the ideas of the Enlightenment, Russia experienced a renaissance of culture and sciences, which led to many new cities, universities, and theaters being founded, along with large-scale immigration from the rest of Europe, and the recognition of Russia as one of the great powers of Europe. An admirer of Peter the Great, Catherine continued to modernize Russia along Western European lines. However, military conscription and the economy continue to depend on serfdom, and the increasing demands of the state and of private landowners intensified the exploitation of serf labor. This was one of the chief reasons behind rebellions, including Pugachev's rebellion of Cossacks, nomads, peoples of the Volga, and peasants. The period of Catherine the Great's rule is also known as the Catherinian era. The Manifesto on Freedom of the Nobility, issued during the short reign of Peter III and confirmed by Catherine, freed Russian nobles from compulsory military or state service. Construction of many mansions of the nobility, in the classical style endorsed by the Empress, changed the face of the country. She is often included in the ranks of the enlightened despots. As a patron of the arts, she presided over the age of the Russian Enlightenment, including the establishment of the Smolny Institute of Noble Maidens, the first state-financed higher education institution for women in Europe. Catherine was born in Stettin, province of Pomerania, Kingdom of Prussia, Holy Roman Empire, as Princess Sophie Frederica Auguste von Anhalt-Zerbst-Dornberg. Her mother was Joanna Elizabeth of Holstein-Gottorp. Her father, Christian August, Prince of Anhalt-Zerbst, belonged to the ruling German family of Anhalt. Lakshmibai, the Rani of Jhansi, the 19th of November 1828 to 18 June 1858, was an Indian queen, the Maharani consort of the Maratha princely state of Jhansi from 1843 to 1853 as the wife of Maharaja Gangadhar Rao. She was one of the leading figures of the First War of Indian Independence of 1857 and became a symbol of resistance to the British Raj for Indian nationalists. Rani Lakshmibai was born on the 19th of November 1828, some sources say 1835, in the town of Varanasi into a Marathi Karhati Brahmin family. She was named Manikarnika Tamba. Her father was Moropant Tamba and her mother Bhagirathi Sapri, Bhagirathi Bai. Her parents came from the Tamba village of the Guhagar Taluka located in the Ratnagiri district of Maharashtra. Her mother died when she was 4 years old. Her father was the commander of the War of Kalyanpranth. Her father worked for Peshwa Baji Rao II of Bithor district. She was educated at home and was taught to read and write, and was more independent in her childhood than others of her age. Her studies included shooting, horsemanship, fencing and Malakamba with her childhood friends Nana Sahib and Tantia Tope. Rani Lakshmibai contrasted many of the patriarchal cultural expectations for women in India's society at this time. And she was known for her unique perspectives and her courage to fight against social norms even in front of the whole society. She married Maharaja Gangadhar Rao Newalkar when she was 14 years old. Gangadhar was the king of Jhansi in 1842. Shortly after her marriage, Queen Jhansi was renamed Lakshmibai, also known as Lakshmi, the Hinduism god of wealth. Bai is an honorary term in the Maratha Empire to symbolize the queen. Damodar Rao was one of her sons who was born in 1851. Sadly, the infant died just a few months after birth due to a severe ailment. After Maharaja's death in November 1853, the British East India Company established the doctrine of lapse norm. The state falls under the company's control, and the king dies without a male successor. Manikarnika was enraged by this injustice. However, the regulation had already been established, and all of her efforts were worthless. The 22-year-old queen refused to cede Jhansi to the British. Finally, in 1857, fighting started. The Mutiny of 1857 is a well-known historical event. Shortly after the beginning of the mutiny in 1857, which broke out in Meerut, Lakshmibai was proclaimed the regent of Jhansi, and she ruled on behalf of the minor heir. Joining the uprising against the British, she rapidly organized her troops and assumed charge of the rebels in the Bundelkhand region. Mutineers in the neighboring areas headed toward Jhansi to offer her support. Rani Lakshmibai was accustomed to riding on horseback accompanied by escorts between the palace and the temple, although sometimes she was carried in a palanquin. Her horses included Sarangi, Pavan and Badal. According to historians, she rode Badal when escaping from the fort in 1858. Rani Lakshmibai, the Queen of Jhansi, dressed as a cavalry leader, was badly wounded. Not wishing the British to capture her body, she told a hermit to burn it. After her death, a few local people cremated her body. Her palace, the Rani Mahal, has now been converted into a museum. It houses a collection of archaeological remains of the period between the 9th and 12th centuries AD. Marie Antoinette was the last queen of France before the French Revolution. She was born an Archduchess of Austria, and was the penultimate child and youngest daughter of Empress Maria Theresa and Emperor Francis I. She became Dauphine of France in May 1770 at age 14 upon her marriage to Louis Auguste, heir apparent to the French throne. On 10 May 1774, her husband ascended the throne as Louis XVI and she became queen. Marie Antoinette's position at court improved when, after 8 years of marriage, she started having children. She became increasingly unpopular among the people, however, with the French libelles accusing her of being profligate, promiscuous, allegedly having illegitimate children, and harboring sympathies for France's perceived enemies, particularly her native Austria. The false accusations of the affair of the diamond necklace damaged her reputation further. During the Revolution, she became known as Madame Deficit because the country's financial crisis was blamed on her lavish spending and her opposition to the social and financial reforms of Turgot and Necker. Several events were linked to Marie Antoinette during the Revolution after the government had placed the royal family under house arrest in the Tuileries Palace in October 1789. The June 1791 attempted flight to Varennes and her role in the War of the First Coalition had disastrous effects on French popular opinion. On 10 August 1792, the attack on the Tuileries forced the royal family to take refuge at the Assembly, and they were imprisoned in the Temple prison on 13 August. On 21 September 1792, the monarchy was abolished. Louis XVI was executed by guillotine on 21 January 1793. Marie Antoinette's trial began on 14 October 1793. She was convicted 2 days later by the Revolutionary Tribunal of High Treason and executed, also by guillotine, at the Place de la Révolution. Nefertiti was a queen of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt, the great royal wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten. Nefertiti and her husband were known for a radical change in national religious policy, in which they promoted a form of proto-monotheism centered on the sun god Aten. With her husband, she reigned at what was arguably the wealthiest period of ancient Egyptian history. Some scholars believe that Nefertiti ruled briefly as Neferuaten after her husband's death and before the ascension of Tutankhamun, although this identification is a matter of ongoing debate. If Nefertiti did rule as pharaoh, her reign was marked by the fall of Amarna and relocation of the capital back to the traditional city of Thebes. She was made famous by her bust, now in Berlin's Neues Museum. The bust is one of the most copied works of art of ancient Egypt. It was attributed to the sculptor Thutmose, and it was found in his workshop. Nefertiti had many titles including Hereditary Princess, Great of Praises, Sweet of Love, Lady of the Two Lands, Main King's Wife, His Beloved, Great King's Wife, His Beloved, Lady of All Women, Mistress of Upper and Lower Egypt, while modern Egyptological pronunciation renders her name as Nefertiti. the beautiful one has come, and probably contemporarily pronounced Naftita from older Nafratida or perhaps Nefertiti. Nefertiti's name can be translated as the beautiful woman has come. Victoria was Queen of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland from the 20th of June 1837 until her death in 1901. Her reign of 63 years and 7 months was longer than that of any previous British monarch and is known as the Victorian era. It was a period of industrial, political, scientific, and military change within the United Kingdom, and was marked by a great expansion of the British Empire. In 1876, the British Parliament voted to grant her the additional title of Empress of India. Victoria was the daughter of Prince Edward, Duke of Kent and Strathern, the fourth son of King George III, and Princess Victoria of Saxe-Coburg-Saalfeld. After the deaths of her father and grandfather in 1820, she was raised under close supervision by her mother and her controller, John Conroy. She inherited the throne aged 18 after her father's 3 elder brothers died without surviving legitimate issue. Victoria, a constitutional monarch, attempted privately to influence government policy and ministerial appointments. Publicly, she became a national icon who was identified with strict standards of personal morality. Victoria married her first cousin Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in 1840. Their children married into royal and noble families across the continent, earning Victoria the sobriquet, the grandmother of Europe, and spreading hemophilia in European royalty. After Albert's death in 1861, Victoria plunged into deep mourning and avoided public appearances. As a result of her seclusion, British republicanism temporarily gained strength, but in the latter half of her reign, her popularity recovered. Her golden and diamond jubilees were times of public celebration. Victoria died in 1901 at Osborne House on the Isle of Wight, at the age of 81. The last British monarch of the House of Hanover, she was succeeded by her son Edward VII of the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Hatshepsut was the 5th pharaoh of the 18th Dynasty of Egypt. She was the second historically confirmed female pharaoh, after Sobneferu. Hatshepsut came to the throne of Egypt in 1478 BC. As the principal wife of Thutmose II, Hatshepsut initially ruled as regent to Thutmose III. Hatshepsut continued to rule by asserting her lineage as the daughter and only child of Thutmose I and his primary wife, Ahmose. Her husband Thutmose II was the son of Thutmose I Hatshepsut, and Thutmose II had a daughter named Neferer. Thutmose II with Iset, a secondary wife, would father Thutmose III, who would succeed Hatshepsut as pharaoh. Hatshepsut ruled Egypt not only as queen and wife of the pharaoh, but as pharaoh herself, adopting the insignia, including beard, and performing the pharaoh's ceremonial race at the Est festival. He went on military campaigns during her co-regency, and she went on a famous trading expedition. The era was prosperous and yielded impressive building projects credited to her. The walls of a temple of Hatshepsut at Deir al-Bahri indicate that she ran a military campaign in Nubia and trading missions with Punt. Later, but not immediately upon her death, attempts were made to erase signs of her reign. Empress Dowager Cixi of the Manchu Yihe Nara clan was a Chinese noblewoman, concubine and later regent who effectively controlled the Chinese government in the late Qing dynasty for 47 years, from 1861 until her death in 1908. Selected as a concubine of the Xianfeng Emperor in her adolescence, she gave birth to a son, Zaichun, in 1856. After the Xianfeng Emperor's death in 1861, the young boy became the Tongzhi Emperor, and she assumed the role of co-Empress Dowager, alongside the emperor's widow, Empress Dowager Xian. Cixi ousted a group of regents appointed by the late emperor and assumed the regency along with Xian, who later mysteriously died. Cixi then consolidated control over the dynasty when she installed her nephew as the Guangxu emperor at the death of her son, the Tongzhi emperor, in 1875. This was contrary to the traditional rules of succession of the Qing dynasty that had ruled China since 1644. Cixi supervised the Tongzhi Restoration, a series of moderate reforms that helped the regime survive until 1911. Although Cixi refused to adopt Western models of government, she supported technological and military reforms and the self-strengthening movement. She supported the principles of the 100 Days reforms of 1898, but feared that sudden implementation, without bureaucratic support, would be disruptive and that the Japanese and other foreign powers would take advantage of any weakness. She placed the Guangxu emperor, who, she thought, had tried to assassinate her, under virtual house arrest for supporting radical reformers, publicly executing the main reformers. After the Boxer Rebellion led to invasion by Allied armies, Cixi initially backed the Boxer groups and declared war on the invaders. The ensuing defeat was a stunning humiliation. When Cixi returned to Beijing from Xi'an, where she had taken the emperor, she became friendly to foreigners in the capital and began to implement fiscal and institutional reforms aimed to turn China into a constitutional monarchy. The deaths of both Cixi and the Guangxu emperor in November 1908 left the court in hands of Manchu conservatives, a child, Puyi, on the throne, and a restless, deeply divided society. Elizabeth I was Queen of England and Ireland from the 17th of November 1558 until her death in 1603. Sometimes referred to as the Virgin Queen, Elizabeth was the last of the 5 monarchs of the House of Tudor. Elizabeth was the daughter of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn, his second wife, who was executed when Elizabeth was 2 years old. Anne's marriage to Henry was annulled, and Elizabeth was declared illegitimate. Her half-brother Edward VI ruled until his death in 1553, bequeathing the crown to Lady Jane Grey and ignoring the claims of his 2 half-sisters, the Catholic Mary and the younger Elizabeth, in spite of statute law to the contrary. Edward's will was set aside and Mary became queen, deposing Lady Jane Grey. During Mary's reign, Elizabeth was imprisoned for nearly a year on suspicion of supporting Protestant rebels. Upon her half-sister's death in 1558, Elizabeth succeeded to the throne and set out to rule by good counsel. She depended heavily on a group of trusted advisors led by William Cecil, whom she created first Baron Burghley. One of her first actions as queen was the establishment of an English Protestant church, of which she became the supreme governor. This Elizabethan religious settlement was to evolve into the Church of England. It was expected that Elizabeth would marry and produce an heir, however, despite numerous courtships, she never did. She was eventually succeeded by her first cousin twice removed, James VI of Scotland. This laid the foundation for the Kingdom of Great Britain. She had earlier been reluctantly responsible for the imprisonment and execution of James's mother, Mary, Queen of Scots. In government, Elizabeth was more moderate than her father and half-siblings had been. One of her mottos was, "Video et taceo," I see and keep silent. In religion, she was relatively tolerant and avoided systematic persecution. After the Pope declared her illegitimate in 1570 and released her subjects from obedience to her, several conspiracies threatened her life, all of which were defeated with the help of her minister's secret service, run by Francis Walsingham. Elizabeth was cautious in foreign affairs, maneuvering between the major powers of France and Spain. She only half-heartedly supported a number of ineffective, poorly resourced military campaigns in the Netherlands, France, and Ireland. By the mid-1580s, England could no longer avoid war with Spain. As she grew older, Elizabeth became celebrated for her virginity. A cult of personality grew around her which was celebrated in the portraits, pageants, and literature of the day. Elizabeth's reign became known as the Elizabethan era. The period is famous for the flourishing of English drama, led by playwrights such as William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe, and for the prowess of English maritime adventurers such as Francis Drake and Walter Raleigh. Some historians depict Elizabeth as a short-tempered, sometimes indecisive ruler, who enjoyed more than her fair share of luck. Towards the end of her reign, a series of economic and military problems weakened her popularity. Elizabeth is acknowledged as a charismatic performer, Gloriana, and a dogged survivor, good Queen Bess, in an era when government was ramshackle and limited, and when monarchs in neighboring countries faced internal problems that jeopardized their thrones. After the short reigns of her half-siblings, her 44 years on the throne provided welcome stability for the kingdom and helped to forge a sense of national identity. She died on the 24th of March 1603 at Richmond Palace, between 2 and 3 in the morning. A few hours later, Cecil and the council set their plans in motion and proclaimed James King of England. While it has become normative to record Elizabeth's death as occurring in 1603, following English calendar reform in the 1750s, at the time England observed New Year's Day on the 25th of March, commonly known as Lady Day. Thus Elizabeth died on the last day of the year 1602 in the old calendar. The modern convention is to use the old-style calendar for the day and month while using the new-style calendar for the year. Theodora, 497–548, was a Byzantine empress, wife of the Emperor Justinian I and the most powerful woman in Byzantine history. Born from humble origins, Theodora reigned over the Byzantine Empire alongside her husband from 527 until her death in 548. They would rule together in a golden period of Byzantine history. Highly intelligent and political astute, she would use her influence to promote religious and social policies and significantly expand the rights of women. Theodora was the daughter of Acacius, a bearkeeper who worked for the Hippodrome of Constantinople. Little is known of her early years. Her mother, whose name is not recorded, was a dancer and actress. After Acacius' death, her mother remarried and began Theodora's acting career. Along with her two sisters, Comatona and Anastasia, Theodora would become an actress, dancer, mime artist and comedian. By 15, she was the star of the Hippodrome. At the time, much of what was called acting would have involved sexual or indecent performances on stage. Theodora would have been, as most actresses were, a child prostitute. According to the salacious writings of the 6th century Byzantine historian, Procopius of Caesarea, Theodora worked in a brothel serving low-status customers before performing on stage. Off-stage, Theodora was said to have had numerous lovers and held wild parties. On stage, she was said to have gained fame particularly for a lurid portrayal of Leda and the Swan. At the age of 16, Theodora walked away from her acting career to become mistress to a Syrian official named Hatshepsut, the governor of what is now known as Libya. She accompanied Hatshepsut on his travels to North Africa, and stayed with him for almost 4 years before returning to Constantinople. Abandoned and maltreated by Hatshepsut, she later settled for a while in Alexandria, Egypt, where she made a living as wool spinner. After her relationship with Hatshepsut broke down, Theodora joined an ascetic community in the desert near Alexandria, where she converted to a branch of early Christianity, Monophysitism. After her conversion, Theodora traveled to Constantinople where she met Justinian, who was 20 years her senior. Justinian was said to have been taken by Theodora's intelligence and beauty, and made her his mistress before marrying her in 525. Theodora's background meant she was not legally allowed to marry Justinian. Roman law from Constantine's time prevented anyone of senatorial rank from marrying actresses. In order to legalize their marriage, Justinian had a law changed to raise her status and created another to allow her to marry. When Emperor Justin I died in 527, Theodora was crowned Empress of Rome, in the same coronation ceremony as her husband. The couple were said to have matched each other in intelligence, ambition and energy. Together, they heralded a new era for the Byzantine Empire and its people. Justinian treated his wife as his intellectual partner, and in doing so Theodora was able to have a major impact on the political decisions of the Byzantine Empire. Although she was never made co-regent, many believed that it was she who ruled Byzantium and not her husband. Theodora's name appears in almost all the legislation passed during the period, and she received foreign envoys and corresponded with foreign rulers, roles usually taken by the ruler. Theodora could in many ways be described as an early feminist. She is remembered as one of the first rulers to recognize the rights of women. As empress, she set up a house where prostitutes could live in peace. She worked for women's marriage and dowry rights, championed anti-rape legislation, and was supportive of young girls who had been sold into sexual slavery. Her laws banished brothel keepers from Constantinople and all other major cities of the empire. She expanded the rights of women in divorce and property ownership, banned forced prostitution, and gave women guardianship rights over their children. During her and her husband's reign, Constantinople was rebuilt and reformed to become the most splendid city the world had seen for centuries. Aqueducts, bridges and churches were built and rebuilt. The greatest of them was the Hagia Sophia, considered the epitome of Byzantine architecture and one of the world's greatest architectural wonders. Theodora died in 548 at the age of 48, possibly of cancer of gangrene. Her death had a visible impact on Justinian, who never remarried. After a period of deep mourning, Justinian would rule for another 17 years. Theodora's importance in Byzantine political life can be demonstrated by the fact that little significant legislation dates from the period between her death and that of her husband's in 548. Empress Suiko was the 33rd monarch of Japan, according to the traditional order of succession. Suiko reigned from 593 until her death in 628. In the history of Japan, Suiko was the first of 8 women to take on the role of Empress Regnant. Before her ascension to the chrysanthemum throne, her personal name was Makeka Shiahime no Makoto. Empress Suiko had several names including Princess Nukatabe and Toyomike Kashikiya. She was a daughter of Emperor Sushin. Her mother was Soga no Iname's daughter, Soga no Kitashihime. Suiko was the younger sister of Emperor Yomei. Empress Suiko was a consort to her half-brother, Emperor Bidatsu, but after Bidatsu's first wife died she became his official consort and was given the title Okasaki, official consort of the emperor. She bore 8 children. After Bidatsu's death, Suiko's brother, Emperor Yomei, came to power for about 2 years before dying of illness. Upon Yomei's death, another power struggle arose between the Soga clan and the Mononobe clan, with the Sogas supporting Prince Hatsusebe and the Mononobes supporting Prince Anahobe. The Sogas prevailed once again and Prince Hatsusebe acceded to the throne as Emperor Sushin in 587. However, Sushin began to resent the power of Soga no Umako, the head of the Soga clan, and Umako, perhaps out of fear that Sushin might strike first, had him assassinated by Yamato Aya no Itekoma in 592. When asked to accede to the throne to fill the power vacuum that subsequently developed, Suiko became the first of what would be several examples in Japanese history where a woman was chosen to accede to the throne to avert a power struggle. In 599, an earthquake destroyed buildings throughout Yamato province in what is now Nara prefecture. Suiko's refusal to grant Soga no Umako's request that he be granted the imperial territory known as Kazuraki no Agata in 624 is cited as evidence of her independence from his influence. Some of the many achievements under Empress Suiko's reign include the official recognition of Buddhism by the issuance of the flourishing Three Treasures Edict in 594. Suiko was also one of the first Buddhist monarchs in Japan and had taken the vows of a nun shortly before becoming empress. The reign of this empress was marked by the opening of relations with the Sui court in 600, the adoption of the 12-level cap and rank system in 603 and the adoption of the 17-article constitution in 604. She adopted the Chinese bureaucratic system and installed the 12 grades of cap rank. Furthermore, she introduced Japan's first constitution that focused on the morals and virtues of government officials. The adoption of the sexagenary cycle calendar, Jikan Junishi, in Japan is attributed to Empress Suiko in 604. At a time when imperial succession was generally determined by clan leaders, rather than the emperor, Suiko left only vague indications of succession to two candidates while on her deathbed. 1. Prince Tamura was a grandson of Emperor Bidatsu and was supported by the main line of Sogas, including Soga no Amishi. The other, Prince Yamashiro, was a son of Prince Shitoku and had the support of some lesser members of the Soga clan. After a brief struggle within the Soga clan in which one of Prince Yamashiro's main supporters was killed, Prince Tamura was chosen and he acceded to the throne as Emperor Jomei in 629. Empress Suiko ruled for 35 years. Although there were 7 other reigning empresses, their successors were most often selected from amongst the males of the paternal. The actual site of Suiko's grave is known. This empress is traditionally venerated at a memorial Shinto shrine, Misasagi, at Osaka. The Imperial Household Agency designates this location as Suiko's mausoleum. It's formally named Shinaga no Yamada no Misasagi. Amalasinda was an Ostrogoth queen and regent. She ruled the Ostrogoths as regent during the minority of her son from 526 to 534 and then as queen regnant from 534 to 535. She was the youngest daughter of Theodoric the Great, king of the Ostrogoths, and firmly believed in the upholding of Roman virtues and values. She is best known for her diplomatic relationship with Justinian I, who invaded Italy in response to her assassination. In 515, Amalasinda married Eutharic, an Ostrogoth noble of the old Amali dynasty who had been previously living in the Aryan kingdom of Hispania. It was important to Amalasuntha's father, Theodoric the Great, that she marry into a legitimate royal family, lest her own family's legitimacy be questioned. She was very much an intellectual, and was well known for her extensive knowledge and reading, which included fluency in Latin, Greek and Gothic. In addition, she was a student of philosophy and was said to possess the wisdom of Solomon. Amalasinda was also described in her day as possessing all of the central Roman virtues expected of a noble woman: happiness, fertility, and patience, although more emphasis was placed on her virtues within the political realm versus the feminine, something that separates her from other Ostrogoth princesses. Like most Ostrogoths, Amalasinda was an Arian Christian. Eutharic died in 522, apparently in the early years of his marriage to Amalasinda, leaving her with 2 children, Athalaric and Matasinda. On the death of her father on the 30th of August 526, her son succeeded him at the age of 10, but she held the power as regent for her son. Her tremendous influence in her position as regent can be seen in a diptych of Rufius Gennadius Probus Orestes in which she appears alongside her son, Athalaric, in 530. Deeply imbued with the old Roman culture, she gave to that son's education a more refined and literary turn than suited the ideas of her Gothic subjects. Conscious of her unpopularity, she banished, and afterwards put to death, 3 Gothic nobles whom she suspected of conspiring against her rule. At the same time, she opened negotiations with the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I with the view of removing herself and the Gothic treasure to Constantinople. Her son's death on the 2nd of October 534 initially made little apparent change in the state of affairs. After Athalaric's death, Amalasinda became queen, ruling alone only for a short while before making her cousin Theodahad co-ruler, with the intent of strengthening her position. Theodahad was a prominent leader of the Gothic military aristocracy, the very group that so opposed her pro-Roman stances. However, Theodahad fostered the disaffection of the Goths, and either by his orders or with his permission, Amalasinda was imprisoned on the island of Martana, located in the Lake of Bolsena in northern Lazio, where on the 30th of April in the spring of 535, she was murdered in her bath. The death of Amalasinda gave Justinian I a reason to go to war with the Ostrogoths and attempt to take Italy. Shortly after Amalasuntha's murder, Theodahad was replaced by Witiges, Amalasuntha's son-in-law. With the people's support, Witiges had Theodahad put to death. Maria Theresa was ruler of the Habsburg dominions from 1740 until her death in 1780, and the only woman to hold the position in her own right. She was the sovereign of Austria, Hungary, Croatia, Bohemia, Transylvania, Mantua, Milan, Lodomeria and Galicia, the Austrian Netherlands, and Parma. By marriage, she was Duchess of Lorraine, Grand Duchess of Tuscany and Holy Roman Empress. Maria Theresa started her 40-year reign when her father, Emperor Charles VI, died on the 20th of October 1740. Charles VI paved the way for her accession with the Pragmatic Sanction of 1713 and spent his entire reign securing it. He neglected the advice of Prince Eugene of Savoy, who believed that a strong military and a rich treasury were more important than mere signatures. Eventually, Charles VI left behind a weakened and impoverished state, particularly due to the War of the Polish Succession and the Russo-Turkish War, 1735 to 1739. Moreover, upon his death, Saxony, Prussia, Bavaria, and France all repudiated the sanction they had recognized during his lifetime. Frederick II of Prussia, who became Maria Theresa's greatest rival for most of her reign, promptly invaded and took the affluent Habsburg province of Silesia in the 7-year conflict known as the War of the Austrian Succession. In defiance of the grave situation, she managed to secure the vital support of the Hungarians for the war effort. During the course of the war, Maria Theresa successfully defended her rule over most of the Habsburg monarchy, apart from the loss of Silesia and a few minor territories in Italy. Maria Theresa later unsuccessfully tried to recover Silesia during the 7 Years' War. Though she was expected to cede power to her husband, Emperor Francis I, and her eldest son, Emperor Joseph II, who were officially her co-rulers in Austria and Bohemia, Maria Theresa was the absolute sovereign who ruled with the council of her advisors. Maria Theresa promulgated institutional, financial, medical and educational reforms, with the assistance of Wenzel Anton of Kaunitz-Rietberg, Friedrich Wilhelm von Haugwitz and Gerard van Swieten. She also promoted commerce and the development of agriculture, and reorganized Austria's ramshackle military, all of which strengthened Austria's international standing. However, she despised Jews and Protestants, and on certain occasions she ordered their expulsion to remote parts of the realm. She also advocated for the state church. Anne Boleyn was Queen of England from 1533 to 1536, as the second wife of King Henry VIII. The circumstances of her marriage and of her execution by beheading for treason and other charges made her a key figure in the political and religious upheaval that marked the start of the English Reformation. Anne was the daughter of Thomas Boleyn, later Earl of Wiltshire and Earl of Ormond, and his wife, Lady Elizabeth Howard, daughter of Thomas Howard, 2nd Duke of Norfolk. Thomas Boleyn was a well-respected diplomat with a gift for languages. He was also a favorite of Henry VII of England, who sent him on many diplomatic missions abroad. Anne and her siblings grew up at Hever Castle in Kent. They were born in Norfolk at the Bolin home at Blickling, and was educated in the Netherlands and France, largely as a maid of honor to Queen Claude of France. Anne returned to England in early 1522, to marry her Irish cousin James Butler, 9th Earl of Ormond. The marriage plans were broken off, and instead she secured a post at court as maid of honor to Henry VIII's wife, Catherine of Aragon. In February or March 1526 Henry VIII began his pursuit of Anne. She resisted his attempts to seduce her, refusing to become his mistress, as her sister Mary had previously been. Henry soon focused his desires on annulling his marriage to Catherine so he would be free to marry Anne. Henry and Anne formally married on the 25th of January 1533, after a secret wedding on the 14th of November 1532. On the 23rd of May 1533, the newly appointed Archbishop of Canterbury Thomas Cranmer declared Henry and Catherine's marriage null and void. 5 days later, he declared Henry and Anne's marriage valid. Anne was crowned Queen of England on the 1st of June 1533. On the 7th of September, she gave birth to the future Queen Elizabeth I. Henry was disappointed to have a daughter rather than a son but hoped a son would follow and professed to love Elizabeth. Anne subsequently had 3 miscarriages and by March 1536, Henry was courting Jane Seymour. In order to marry Seymour, Henry had to find reasons to end the marriage to Anne. Henry VIII had Anne investigated for high treason in April 1536. On the 2nd of May, she was arrested and sent to the Tower of London, where she was tried before a jury of peers, including Henry Percy, her former betrothed, and her uncle Thomas Howard, 3rd Duke of Norfolk. She was convicted on the 15th of May and beheaded 4 days later. Modern historians view the charges against her, which included adultery, incest and plotting to kill the king, as unconvincing. After her daughter, Elizabeth, became queen in 1558, Anne became venerated as a martyr and heroine of the English Reformation, particularly through the written works of John Foxe. She has inspired, or been mentioned in, many artistic and cultural works and retained her hold on the popular imagination. She has been called the most influential and important queen consort England has ever had, as she provided the occasion for Henry VIII to annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon and declare the English Church's independence from the Vatican. Letizia as the Queen of Spain is the wife of King Felipe VI. In 2004, she married Felipe, then Prince of Asturias and heir apparent to the Spanish throne. Their daughters, Leonor and Sofia, were born in 2005 and 2007 respectively. As Princess of Asturias, Letizia represented her father-in-law, King Juan Carlos, in Spain and abroad. On her father-in-law's abdication in June 2014, Felipe and Letizia became king and queen. Letizia Ortiz Rocasolano was born on 15 September 1972 at Miñor Sanatorium in Oviedo, Asturias, the eldest daughter of Jesus José Ortiz Álvarez, a journalist, and his first wife, María de la Paloma Rocasolano Rodríguez, a registered nurse and hospital union representative. She has 2 younger sisters, Telma, 1973, and Erika, 1975 to 2007. Letizia attended La Gesta School in Oviedo, before her family moved to Rivas Vallamadrid, where she attended the Ramiro de Mestu High School. She completed a bachelor's degree in journalism, at the Complutense University of Madrid, as well as a master's degree in audiovisual journalism at the Institute for Studies in Audiovisual Journalism. During her studies, Letizia worked for the Asturian daily newspaper La Nueva España and later for the newspaper ABC and the news agency FA. After completing her master's degree, she traveled to Guadalajara, Mexico, where she worked at the newspaper Siglo XXI and began work toward a PhD. After returning to Spain, she worked for the Spanish version of the economic channel Bloomberg before moving to the news network CNN+. In 2000, Queen Letizia of Spain was presented with the Lara Award as the Most Distinguished Young Journalist of the Year by Madrid Press Association for her Iraq war coverage. Princess Letizia immediately joined in the duties of her husband and traveled extensively through Spain representing her father-in-law. They also represented Spain in other countries. She has traveled along with her husband to Jordan, Mexico, Peru, Hungary, the Dominican Republic, Panama, the United States, Serbia, Brazil, Uruguay, Sweden, Denmark, Japan, China, and Portugal. She also greeted international dignitaries, along with other members of the royal family, and attended gatherings of foreign royalty in Luxembourg, for the silver wedding anniversary of the Grand Duke and Grand Duchess of Luxembourg, and in the Netherlands for the 40th birthday of the Prince of Orange. In their first overseas trip as king and queen, Felipe VI and Letizia met Pope Francis on the 30th of June 2014, in the Apostolic Palace. They later met with Cardinal Secretary of State Pietro Parolin, accompanied by MGSR. Antoine Camilleri, Under-Secretary for Relations with States. The visit followed one by King Juan Carlos I and Queen Sofia on the 28th of April. In 2015, Letizia was named Special Ambassador for Nutrition for the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. Her solo agenda was announced in 2006, shortly after the announcement of her second pregnancy. Letizia has performed a couple of audiences and her work focuses on social issues such as children's rights, culture, and education. Maxima as Queen of the Netherlands is the wife of King Willem-Alexander. She worked in marketing when she met Willem-Alexander, eldest son and heir apparent of Queen Beatrix, in 1999. They married in 2002, and became king and queen on the abdication of her mother-in-law on the 30th of April 2013. Maxima has promoted social integration of immigrants, LGBT rights, and financial inclusion. She and Willem-Alexander have 3 daughters, Princesses Katharina Amalia, Alexia, and Ariane, who are first, second, and third, respectively, in the line of succession. Maxima Zorreguieta Cerruti was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, on the 17th of May 1971. She is the daughter of Jorge Zorreguieta, 1928–2017, who served as Secretary of Agriculture under General Jorge Rafael Videla during Argentina's last civil-military dictatorship, 1976–1983, and his second wife, Maria del Carmen Cerruti Caricart, born 1944. She grew up in the Recoleta neighborhood of Buenos Aires and studied at Northlands School, a bilingual school of the city of Olivos. She graduated with a degree in economics from the Pontifical Catholic University of Argentina, UCA, in 1995. This private university is governed by a directory of local bishops, including the current Pope Francis, then Archbishop of Buenos Aires and Grand Chancellor of UCA. During her student years, Francis presided over the traditional Mass at the beginning of classes. She later completed her studies with a master's degree in the United States. From 1989 to 1990, while still in college, she worked for Mercado Abierto Electrónico S.A. From 1992 to 1995, she worked in the sales department of Boston Securities SA in Buenos Aires, where she conducted research on software for financial markets. From July 1996 to February 1998, she worked for HSBC James Capel Inc. in New York City, where she became Vice President of Institutional Sales for Latin America. From then until July 1999, she was vice president of the Emerging Markets Division of Dresdner Kleinwort Benson in New York. From May 2000 to March 2001, she worked for Deutsche Bank in Brussels. She also worked as a teacher of English to children and adults, and of mathematics for high school students and freshmen. Queen Maxima has a particular concern for the integration of immigrants into Dutch culture. She was a member of a special parliamentary commission which sought to recommend ways to increase the participation of female immigrants in the workforce. Maxima stresses the importance for immigrants of learning the Dutch language, as she did, in order to fully participate in Dutch society. Dutch is the Queen's third language. She is also fluent in Spanish, her native language, and English. She speaks French at a conversational level. She participates in conferences around the world representing the Netherlands. She was granted a seat in the Dutch Council of State on the 20th of October 2004, the highest advisory body and court of administration. She was a member of the Committee for Ethnic Minority Women's Participation from July 2003 until 2005. She has a seat on the Board of Governors of the Chair on the Management of Diversity and Integration at the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. She, along with her husband, is a patron of the Orange Fund, established to promote social welfare and cohesion in the Netherlands. And she also chairs the Board of Trustees of the Prins Claus Chair in Development and Equity of the International Institute of Social Studies and the University of Utrecht. Maxima is one of the few members of royal families anywhere in the world to be an open supporter of gay rights, and was the first member of a royal family to attend an LGBT rights conference, having attended a conference concerned with LGBT rights on the 5th of March 2008. Queen Maxima has been honorary chair of the MoneyWise platform since 2010. In this capacity, the Queen focuses attention on the importance of financial education and managing money sensibly, especially where children and young people are concerned. The Queen acts as special advisor to the platform and consults with interested parties on ways of increasing people's financial awareness and resilience. Since the 10th of June 2015, Queen Maxima has been the honorary chair of the Ambassadors for Music at School platform. Queen Maxima has for some years been committed to giving as many children as possible the opportunity to create music. Queen Maxima is a member of the Committee for Enterprise and Finance, which succeeded the Microfinance Council in 2011. The Queen is committed to extending the reach of various financing opportunities, both through coaching and by providing credit for new and existing small businesses in the Netherlands. She also works to increase the number of women entrepreneurs and the scope they have to expand their businesses. Since March of 2022, Queen Maxima is an honorary president of Mind Us, a mental health platform created in collaboration with the Mind Foundation. Norodom Monineath Sihanouk is the Queen Mother of Cambodia. She was Queen Consort of Cambodia from 1993 to 2004, as the wife of King Norodom Sihanouk. She is the widow of King Father Norodom Sihanouk, whom she married in 1955 as the secondary consort. Sihanouk married his official wife, Norodom Thabit Norlik, as the First Lady, also in 1955, before being married to Monineath. After Sihanouk and Norlik divorced in 1968, Monineath became the official spouse of the king. Monineath and King Sihanouk had two children, Norodom Sahamani and Norodom Narendrapong. Her official, full title is Samdek Praya Mahaksatri Norodom Monineath Sihanouk. The Queen is also called Praya Vori Kreech Miata Cheet Khmer. Her birthday on the 18th of June is an official public holiday in Cambodia. Norodom Monineath was born on the 18th of June 1936, in Saigon, French Indochina, in present-day Vietnam. She was born Paul Monique Izzy, and is sometimes referred to as Queen Monique. Her father, Jean-François Izzy, was a French banker of Corsican, French and Italian descent, who was director of Crédit Foncier in Saigon, and killed in World War II. Her mother, Pham Piang, was from Phnom Penh. In 1955, Princess Monique's husband abdicated in favor of his father, but continued to rule the country as premier. In 1960, he became head of state again, but known as premier and with the title prince. Princess Monique served as president of the Cambodian Red Cross, CRC, in 1967 to 1970. Princess Monique, as she was called during this period, was exposed to some criticism from the Khmer Republic for her life during the reign of Sihanouk in the 1960s. The propaganda of the Khmer Republic was later to accuse her of having caused the strained relationship between Sihanouk and his mother, the popular Queen Mother Sisowath Kossamak, and for being the cause to why her spouse prevented his mother from succeeding to the throne in 1960. Norodom Monineath spent the following years with her husband as state guests of China and North Korea. She is credited to have played some part in the peace negotiations arranged between Sihanouk and Hun Sen by Tong Siv Eng in 1987 and 1988, and she is known to have been present during the negotiations. Sihanouk reportedly suggested to change the constitution to make it possible for her to be a regent and succeed him on the throne, but ultimately, this did not come about, and he chose to abdicate in favor of their son instead, Norodom Sahamani. He is the current king of Cambodia. Monineath speaks Khmer, French, and English. She is currently the Cambodian Red Cross Honorary President. In 2010, she was nominated for Time Person of the Year by Documentation Center of Cambodia director Yuk Chang, who praised the Queen Mother as an embodiment of resilience, dignity and courage. Sonja is Queen of Norway since the 17th of January 1991 as the wife of King Harald. Sonja and the then Crown Prince Harald had dated for 9 years prior to their marriage in 1968. They had kept their relationship a secret due to the controversy of Sonja's status as a commoner. Harald had told his father, King Olav V, that he would remain unmarried if his father did not grant consent to marry Sonja. Upon their marriage, Sonja became crown princess and later the Queen of Norway upon her husband's accession to the throne in 1991. The couple have 2 children together, Princess Martha Louise and Crown Prince Haakon. As queen, Sonja holds patronage with up to 15 organizations. Sonja has also served as vice president of the Norwegian Red Cross from 1987 to 1990. She is also known for her interest in music, art and culture, having founded the Queen Sonja International Music Competition and the Queen Sonja Print Award. She is also a graphic artist and ceramicist, with many of her works being featured in exhibitions across Norway and other countries. Sonja Haraldsen was born on the 4th of July 1937 in Oslo, the daughter of clothing merchant Carl August Haraldsen, 1875 to 1959, and Dagny Ulrichsen, 1898 to 1994. She had 3 siblings, Håkon Haraldsen, Gry Henriksen, and Carl Herman Haraldsen. She grew up at Tungen Allé 1B in the district of Vinderen in Oslo and completed her lower secondary schooling in 1954. She received a diploma in dressmaking and tailoring at the Oslo Vocational School, and a diploma from École Professionnelle des Jeunes Filles, a finishing school, in Lausanne, Switzerland. There, she studied accounting, fashion design, and social science. She returned to Norway for further studies and received an undergraduate degree, French, English and Art History, from the University of Oslo. In June 1959 she first met Crown Prince Harald, the future King Harald V, at a party hosted by Johan H. Stenersen. Later in August the Crown Prince invited her to his graduation ball, where they were photographed together for the first time. Sonja became engaged to Crown Prince Harald on the 19th of March 1968. The couple married on the 29th of August 1968 at Oslo Cathedral. She thus acquired the style of Royal Highness and the title of Crown Princess of Norway. Following the death of King Olav V on the 17th of January 1991, Sonja became Norway's first queen consort in 52 years. Queen Sonja accompanied King Harald V when he swore his oath to uphold the constitution in the Storting on the 21st of January 1991. Since his accession, Queen Sonja has accompanied the king to the formal opening of the autumn session of the Storting and the reading of the speech from the throne. In accordance with their own wishes, the king and queen were consecrated in Nidaros Cathedral in Trondheim on the 23rd of June 1991. Following the consecration, the king and queen conducted a 10-day tour of southern Norway. The queen accompanies the king on official state visits abroad. She acts as the hostess when foreign heads of state officially visit Norway. In 2005, Queen Sonja became the first queen ever to visit Antarctica. The queen was there to open the Norwegian Troll Research Station in the country's Antarctic dependency, Queen Maud Land. The queen flew in on one of the Royal Norwegian Air Force's C-130H Hercules transport aircraft, landing at Troll Airfield. In 2017, Queen Sonja was awarded the Trysil Canute Prize. She is the first woman to ever receive the award. The Queen was appointed a Rear Admiral in the Royal Norwegian Navy and a Brigadier in the Norwegian Army. She has undergone a basic officer training course and has participated in exercises. Silvia is Queen of Sweden as the wife of King Carl XVI Gustaf. She has held this title since her marriage to Carl Gustaf in 1976. The king and queen have 3 children: Crown Princess Victoria, Prince Carl Philip, and Princess Madeline. Silvia Renata Sommerlath was born in Heidelberg, Germany, on the 23rd of December 1943, the only daughter of Alice, née Soares de Toledo, and Walther Sommerlath. Her father was German and her mother was Brazilian. She has one older brother, Ralph Sommerlath. Her other brothers were Walther Sommerlath and Georg Sommerlath. She attended high school in Dusseldorf, graduating in 1963, and attended the Munich School of Interpreting from 1965 to 1969, majoring in Spanish. She has some fluency in Swedish Sign Language, a national sign language used by the deaf community in Sweden. She is a trained interpreter and Swedish is her 6th language. She speaks her native German, her mother's language of Portuguese, as well as French, Spanish, and English. Queen Silvia established Mentor International in 1994 in collaboration with the World Health Organization. Her vision was to offer mentoring as inspiration, empowerment, and motivation for young people to make healthy life choices and view their futures more positively. Mentor's work has been recognized by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the Organization of American States, and the Council of Europe. She is now an honorary board member of Mentor Foundation. She was also a co-founder of the World Childhood Foundation in 1999, having been inspired by her work as patron of the First World Congress Against Commercial Sexual Exploitation of Children held in Stockholm. She has also been involved in the Global Child Forum, which she helped initiate, as a keynote speaker in several forums. Her commitment to the work with dementia and the care of the elderly at the end of life is also well known and respected. On her initiative, Silviahemmet was established in Stockholm. It works to educate hospital personnel in how to work with people suffering from dementia, and also initiates research in the area. She chairs the Royal Wedding Fund, which supports research in sports and athletics for disabled young people, and the Queen Silvia Jubilee Fund for research on children and disability. Queen Silvia holds honorary positions in the Swedish Amateur Athletic Association, the Children's Cancer Foundation of Sweden, and Save the Children Sweden.